Hello and welcome. Here we paraphrase, comment upon and contribute to a video by Paul Kingsnorth. What is there left to conserve? Paul's voice will be spoken by the female presenter, and the no other way commentator is me. Firstly, our glossary of terms. Perfect oneness, wholeness, ultimate reality, source, implicit in everything, contains all, knows all, unified field, physics, formless, beyond words and forms, ground of being, God beyond God, Tillich, Brahman, unity, unification, awareness, God, Christ, implicate order, David Bohm, benevolence, all-knowing, infinite, unconditional love, soul, the manifestation of perfect oneness as reflected through and within all, also referred to as spirit, religion, activity, associated truth. Truth, that which does not change. Human condition, the subjective experience of perfect oneness.
What do we do when there's nothing left to conserve?
The etymology of conserve is to keep and together, to keep together, with its antonyms being to waste, squander, dissipate, or fall apart. The Western culture currently has a strong propensity towards the antonyms with humankind's continued existence, crying out for the conservation of our lifeline, our connection with our home planet Earth.
There are a lot of people around at the moment trying to conserve or defend this thing called the West. We want to defend the West, or to conserve it, and the notion that it is in decline, or is collapsing or dying, or even committing suicide is reaching a kind of a crescendo everywhere. All these kinds of chickens of modernity that the West created
The meta-crisis.
and unleashed into the world are all coming home to roost. But if you want to conserve the West, you have to know what it is. So what is this West we're talking about? If you want to talk about the West, or of conserving it, or the culture of the West, you have to tell a story about it.
As we have said elsewhere in other posts, human beings are storytellers. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell others, the stories we are told, and coupled with our social constructs, our lives are a mix of evolving stories. Stories are how we frame, portray, and project our individual and collective meanings, beliefs, realities, awarenesses, and experiences. They are the narrative by which we define our past, present, and future, all from within the ever-present now. They are how we communicate, and there are many ways they can be told. As stories, they are imbued with myth, legend, fact, fiction, drama, hopes, dreams, visions, and fear, the whole gamut of life. There is both an art and a science to storytelling, and authentic storytelling is both a key attribute and skill, supporting human existence as an important element in the cosmos, its great unfolding, its evolution and emergence.
Every culture has a sacred story.
See our post, The Insane Newcomers Are Trying to Find Themselves.
At the heart of it, every culture everywhere directs its gaze towards where the divine
The etymology of divine can be described as of or belonging to God, perfect oneness.
can be found, or where it thinks the divine can be found.
The earliest story ever found, 2500 BCE, the Epic of Gilgamesh is about surpassing all other kings, he who sees the depths and he who sees the unknown, with its central themes being friendship, which is essential to personal growth, understanding, compassion, and self-awareness. The search for meaning, how our lives are connected and contribute to the great unfolding and our relationship to the divine, the whole, holy.
Something that took me about 40 years to understand. So that's, I think, what you have to understand if you're going to talk about conserving something, or restoring something, or returning to something.
Returning to our destiny, or finding or uncovering something,
If you want to defend the West, for example, talking about defending Christendom,
starting with the Old Testament, the story of the fall and the Garden of Eden.
and the values that came from it, or the post-Christian liberal culture that came out of Christendom after the Enlightenment, which is still based on the values that sacred story gives you. Now, you can dislike all of those values and have no interest in that religion.
The etymology of religion, meaning good faith or tying to.
If you like, but it's still the origin story of this place.
The West's indigenous story,
So every culture has got a sacred core.
e.g., indigenous cultures believe that everything is imbued with spirit.
And when you take your eyes off the sacred core,
The Garden of Eden, of our home planet Earth.
you start looking at something else. That's what happened in the garden. G.K. Chesterton had an argument with Marx about this. He said the truth is that irreligion
Bad faith, untetheredness,
is the opium of the people, because wherever the people do not believe in something beyond the world,
the divine,
they will worship the world, and above all, they will worship the strongest thing in the world.
power, and wealth, as currently depicted through the capitalist consumerist pandemic.
So you do. That's what we do. There's a lot of people these days, it seems to me, who want to talk about defending the West, who are still trying to worship the strongest thing in the world. When they talk about defending the West, they're often talking about defending capitalism, which has done more to destroy culture and values in the West than any other system ever. Or maybe they're trying to defend free speech or individualism, or the right to be rude on the internet. But those things themselves are a sort of result of the settlement that was designed to replace Christendom, and that settlement is known as the Enlightenment, which is designed to replace this original origin story with another origin story, a human-centered one this time. The settlement assumes that humans are disaggregated individuals who can roam the world, speaking freely and consuming freely, and imposing this kind of rational, science-based order on the world.
The insane newcomers, please see our previous post. The insane newcomers are trying to find themselves.
And that leads to progress. And this combines the moral values of Western Christianity and the universalism, because Christianity is universal, with this kind of individualism and a faith in science and technology, and it brings this new origin story,
It rewrites history.
which replaces the one about the garden and the snake. This one tells us that we were saved from superstition and ignorance by the Holy Trinity of modernity, reason, science, and technology. We've stopped believing all the silly stories about gods and monsters, which we only believe when we didn't know anything else, and we faced the bracing reality that the universe is a meaningless swirl of matter and energy, which came from nothing for no reason, and humans are just gene-replicating machines. So that's a nice story, isn't it? So we're post-religious humankind now, because we don't have time for that anymore. I suppose I grew up believing this post-religious story, and it did take me a long time to get away from it, but I don't believe it anymore. I don't think I believed it for a long time, but I didn't know what I believed instead. What I believe now is that in a significant sense, everything is religious. In a really fundamental sense, everything is religious now.
Capitalism, consumption, greed, and exploitation is the implicit taken for granted new religion adopted by the majority of humankind.
So if everything's religious, the old religion is dead, or at least we've walked away from it, and the thing we tried to replace it with, this kind of rational, secular human progress, is sort of failing as well, because it doesn't meet the deeper needs of people.
In some sense, we have become our own God.
Where do you end up? Well, a good person to ask what is really going on is perennialist, Frenchman René Guénon, who became a Muslim, migrated to Egypt, and wrote a lot of books trying to save the West from its own materialism, and he predicted that in the early 21st century, assuming something big didn't change, which it didn't, the West would enter this thing he called the reign of quantity, and the reign of quantity is an age of pure materialism,
Of consumption.
where everything is quantified, subjected to scientific assessment, and technological and management rationalization. Guénon said that in the reign of quantity, religious feeling would become quantitative as well, because all we could do was engage with things on this measurable material level.
It is interesting to note that the etymology of measurement can be traced to Sanskrit for Maya, meaning illusion, or to give form to. And as we find in quantum mechanics, at the subatomic level, all is vibrating energy, energy in motion. So what we take to be material at one level is ethereal at another. Not everything is material, mechanistic or objective, as modernism postulates, and quantum physics tells us we determine or bring into reality that which we measure.
So humanity can't shake off its religious impulse. We always have this desire for transcendence.
The desire to know what rests behind and beyond, but we channel it into something material, instead, our own constructions.
So instead of having this untouchable, mysterious, numinous thing outside creation, or woven through creation, you have the force of will, humanity, material things become the object of worship. As Chesterton said, if you don't worship something outside the world, you worship the strongest thing in the world.
Materialism and belief in modernist science, which could be classified as a pseudo-religion.
And I think that's where we are. So the religious impulse is manifesting in material
Purely a humankind material.
form, mainly through the use of technology to promote the human will and human desire.
Suddenly, the world worships technology as the new god. But technology should not be allowed to outpace ethics. Technology is power, but power without ethics is evil. Ethics is still the core discipline for any form of progress in the world. Eminentlyquotable.com.
Once you reject God, you are fated to try and replace him. That's what happens all the time. There are plenty of Greek myths about that. So this is where our paths are leading us, and I think it's why the waters of the age feel so disturbed, why everything feels so weird certainly does to me. Transhumanism, artificial intelligence, the transcending of everything from biology to gender, the growing of food and babies in labs, we are very openly now seeking to break all the limits. We make nature, we build the world anew. We're building this new digital Tower of Babel, and all the people responsible for that are, interestingly, very open about what they think they're doing. Ray Kurzweil, the granddaddy of the singularity, head of engineering at Google, the people who design everything we use all day, when asked, "Does God exist?" replied, "I would say, not yet." So let that sink in. So this is a revolution that is going to make the Enlightenment look like a tea party, I think, and the entire basis of reality is being rewritten. There's nothing that can be agreed on. There's nothing that's sacred, nothing that's real. There's nothing you can't change, nothing you can't make new. Whole generations growing up with a much closer relationship to screen-based symbols than to the natural world.
And that's unnatural, the insanity of the newcomers.
Convinced that the world is our playground, for us to do with as we want, to destroy it if we want, to trash the garden if we want, and everything from history to human nature can be changed, if you feel like changing them, and then change them back again, if you want to afterwards. So we are consciously making ourselves post-human, to make the world post-natural and post-wild. So, if the age that we live in is starting to take on the flavor of a war,
Competitive, combative, and violence against each other and our home planet Earth.
over the meaning of reality itself, which is to say, a religious war, that's because it is. So in that context, what can we conserve? I'd say nothing, actually, nothing. In a culture that doesn't agree that nature exists, or that we had some basic shared assumptions about reality, the question almost doesn't make sense. Because conserving something assumes some kind of understanding of what good is, what reality is, what history is, what your culture is, what the sacred is. We haven't got that anymore. So I think that the challenge actually now is not so much to ask what you can conserve or restore. You have to go much further back than that. You have to dig down to the foundations. So the challenge now is not to ask what you can conserve or restore. The challenge now is to choose your religion.
Either a humankind-made religion or a natural, deep-rooted, indigenous, holistic, emergent, unfolding religion greater than humankind within which we contribute. Epilogue. The foundational stories of humankind, whether in actuality or applied as a metaphor, of the fall from grace, of Michael the Archangel, or Adam and Eve, or the Epic of Gilgamesh, friendship, and that who sees and knows the unknown have acted as a cornerstone and support, either explicitly or implicitly, in humankind's development. Grace can be defined as undeserved favor, an unconditional gift, love, the Garden of Eden, our home planet Earth, given benevolently by that which lies behind and beyond, God, for the benefit of all but then, failing to recognize and embrace such falling into the struggle of good over evil, of community, togetherness, and being whole, perfect oneness, over separateness, duality, violence, power, and greed. What once was whole and beautiful, from which humankind emerged and evolved by whatever means for humankind to participate in, becomes overwhelmed and destroyed through the introduction of doubt and choice. We could doubt the existence of God, we could doubt what is good, and we could choose separation and evil. We convince ourselves we can act as God and make ourselves as the ultimate supreme power. Separation or duality is in reality a human construct, as everything at its most fundamental level arises from and returns to perfect oneness, or, if you prefer quantum, foam, from a state of perpetual dynamic potential. We have to remember our destiny. The 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza postulated that God and the world are one and the same, rather than separate entities, and in a similar way this is what quantum physics is also proving: all is one. Ian Stewart and Jack Cohen, in their book Figments of Reality, in a chapter headed The Origins of Life, comment: life seems very different from organic matter. It can move of its own volition, reproduce itself, consume other substances, respond to its environment. It is therefore hardly surprising that some people think that living material is simply a different kind of stuff from non-living matter. This belief is known as vitalism. Its greatest deficit is that there is no evidence in its favor. None of this different kind of stuff has ever been isolated. If you take a living organism to bits, right down to the molecular level, all you find is ordinary matter. We humans are made from the same atoms as the rocks, water, and air around us. The inevitable conclusion, if that it's not the ingredients that differ, it is how they are organized. Elliot Grant Watson writes, "I have become aware of what Jung has called the noumenal reality, which embraces the whole situation." Physicist Paul Davies said, "There is now broad agreement among physicists and cosmologists that the universe is in several respects fine-tuned, organized for life. But the conclusion is not so much that the universe is fine-tuned for life. Rather, it is fine-tuned for the building blocks and environments that life requires." Alan Wallace comments, John Barrow, Frank Tipler, and others suggest that there exists one possible universe designed with the goal of generating and sustaining observers, and that intelligent information processing must come into existence in the universe, and once it comes into existence, it will never die out. Also see the anthropic principle. In other words, the universe is life-friendly. There may be something like a life force that created this universe, a stage for intelligent life, a house brought forth to contain everything within it. Marianne Williamson in A Return to Love. Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. Comments, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking, so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. We shall leave the final words to the water boys from their song, The Christ, Perfect Oneness in You. I'm going to look twice at you until I see the Christ in you, when I'm looking through the eyes of love. We commend it to you and suggest you practice it every day.